I got two words for you: Trijicon and ACOG. I've been basically harassed for the last couple of years about why I haven't gotten my hands on one yet. And it's very simple. I have no need for one to buy one, and no one sent one in for review. Happily, however, I befriended Delta34, who's another amazing YouTuber who probably has forgotten more about ACOGs than I will ever truly know. I'm not the foremost authority on that. If you want to find out more about ACOGs, definitely check out his channel, linked in the description below. But he was nice enough to reach out to me and say, hey, I want to send you one for review. What would you like to review? Me not knowing anything about ACOGs, I said, I like a lot of eye relief, and I know that a lot of them sort of suck, so give me something that's pretty easy to get behind. Well, he sent me the TA33, which is what you're looking at right now. I don't know if it was a joke or not, but there's a lot to unbox with this thing. So let's get started with a quick physical overview and then get into the nitty gritty. If you want to skip over that, use my time codes below to wander around this video as you like. I've been trying to make my unboxing segments a little bit shorter because I felt like they were really long. I know there was a lot of information I try to go over with the unboxing segment, but if you like the longer version of this where I just talk about everything that's going on with the optic as opposed to doing a voiceover like this, please let me know in the comment section below because I want to make you all happy. And if you're not happy, then why do I continue doing things the way that I do? So please let me know which sort of format you prefer. Me doing the voiceover or me just talking to the camera about the product in hand as it comes and it hits me, boom, at first impression. With getting that out of the way, let's talk about Trijicon and their boxes. They're really nice. They're a hard plastic shell with nice egg crate inside. They're not Pelican quality, but they're good enough for what they are to keep the product really safe. And it's a nice little touch given that you're going to be spending about $1,000 for one of these products. There's all the information you're going to need to know about this particular TA33 in particular. I said particular twice, didn't I? I really should write these out. Once we open up the box, you will see we have the optic, we have that nice foam, and we have a plethora of different little goodies underneath it. You got a little neoprene cover, some stickers, and some booklets showcasing what this is about, and well, basically all the information you'll probably ever need to know about one of them. Enough of that though, let's get this thing in hand and see what we've got. As you can see, there's actually a lot more going on to it than just the TA33. We actually have a high spacer and a Midwest Industries QD mount, as well as an armor on top. So, a basic full kit for someone that would be running this on an AR. You want to run an offset red dot, so this way you have both a more or less 1x, and in this case a 3x, which is a nice combination. But it's not the only way to achieve such a setup, which we will be talking about soon. But first we must find out what this entire setup weighs. On their website, Trijicon claims this thing's about 9 ounces and change, but we have a QD mount and we have an RMR with an adapter plate on top. As you can see, it's still just shy of 12 ounces. This thing is extremely lightweight in hand. At the time of filming, I only had the fake COG, which is a cheap Chinese POS ACOG style optic, and you can see it weighs a lot more, but no real surprise there. Just know that this thing is very lightweight for the entire package that it is. We'll talk weight more when I compare this against some of its rivals, but honestly the comparison segment on this thing is going to be also very short. Talking about the physicality of this thing, it's built really solidly. There's a lot going on. There I am trying to showcase how you should be running this offset mount. You should be main eye, or rather your dominant eye, through the prism, and then you just twist it to use your non-dominant eye through the top red dot. There's a lot of different ways you could do it. You could just lift your head up, but to each their own. That's the way I prefer running something like this, is just canting the rifle and using your non-dominant eye to look through it, because you should be using both eyes open anyway. However, if you have an eye dominance issue, that can definitely cause more harm than good in some cases. The quick release Midwest Industries mount is phenomenal. It's basically what you'd find on all the higher end stuff. It's got a quick little adjustment on the side. It's got a really strong QD lever, and it's built really well. It's exactly what I would want to run on a setup like this if I was running something like this. As for the body overall, it is solid. These are forged 7075. They feel like you could run them over with a car and nothing is going to break. Everything is tightly secured with a couple of screws on the rear ocular part of the housing. And you can see right there, there is your name, model number, and your magnification and your objective size. Lenses on these are non-adjustable. So if you potentially think you might have a problem with your eye focusing to the reticle, definitely get your hands on one first if you can before you buy one, because if you buy one, now you got to try to return it or sell it used and take a loss. For me, in my eyes, I had no problem seeing the reticle perfectly fine, but again, no two eyes are the same, ladies and gentlemen. As far as the windage and elevation turrets, they are set and forget. They have a pretty good sound and feel, which I'll let you listen to in just a moment. They're both capped and tethered, so basically as bulletproof as possible. You never have to worry about losing these caps, which is a wonderful thing, because if you don't have a tether on it and you take it off, you make an adjustment and you maybe drop it under your bench, you could lose a cap, especially a cap this small, very easily. Wow, those are loud and proud. Very good sounding and feeling click. These turrets are really tight. The turrets are exactly what I want in an optic, where you're going to literally just make an adjustment and you're going to cap it and hopefully never have to remove it. And because they're so tight, you never really have to worry about this thing losing zero, at least from the turrets rotating accidentally. However, that is something that we have to talk about, because there was a massive issue with this thing when it came to my tracking test. I usually try to track everything I can. Sometimes with red dots, it doesn't really add up, because even with a 3x magnifier, it's kind of hard. But with a prism, you can technically magnify it. So I put a 3x magnifier behind this, which will give us about 6x, and I was able to accurately and easily follow the reticle on my target when we made the adjustments to the windage and elevation, which you were going to see next. But I got to finish talking about it first, because I actually sent this into Trijicon to have it get checked out, because the reticle was moving in the most bizarre way I've ever seen. You would adjust the windage, and it would adjust the windage one way, and then the way that you were trying to adjust it. And then you adjust the elevation, it would do the exact same thing. And when you adjust one, the other would also have some play. It would move up and down if you were adjusting the windage. And if you were adjusting the elevation, it would move side to side. It was very, very problematic for me. Trijicon had this for about a month. They first said, yes, there is something wrong with it. And then they said, oh, well, it's your mount. It's not a factory Trijicon mount, so it must be the mount that's causing the problem. I could assure you, ladies and gentlemen, it is not the mount's fault. So Trijicon first said that, yes, there is something wrong. We're going to check it out. And then they said, no, we're not. It's the mount's fault. We're sending it back. I just gave you a quick demonstration of how bright the tritium is on this with looking through the scope. I covered up the fiber optic tube on top, and it made no real difference to the brightness. So at least the tritium on this thing is really, really impressive. But let's look at the failure of a tracking test for this thing.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What you are looking at is a 6X Trijicon TA33. And the reason for that is I have a HoloSun HM3X magnifier behind it. That is so we can see just how this reticle moves on that target here at 41 yards. A little bit easier than what it was earlier. So, to make this as, how should I say, grounded as possible, I'm going to now move my mount as hard as I can with my hands, and you can see there's a little bit of spring to it, but it returns back to zero perfectly fine. That's because this is extremely rigid mounted. It's literally anchored to a piece of concrete. It's not going anywhere. As for the HM3X magnifier, if I pull it to the side, we can't see through it. And the reason for that is eye relief. We have from the front of the camera to the back of the TA33 like 7 to 8 inches, which is, 3 to 4 times normal what it should be for a Trijicon, or rather for a prism of any kind. But that is all fine and dandy. You can see everything is good. I'm now going to grab the TA33 and I'm going to wiggle it. And you can see it returns back to zero, up and down, side to side. Maybe a very minor discrepancy there. This is on, which one is this? This is a Midwest Industries QD mount. So yeah, it might have a little bit of play, but as you can see here, it returns basically exactly where we were. You might notice already that the reticle is not perfectly lined up to where I normally start all my tracking test videos. That is because, and you'll see very soon, there's a problem with this. And this is actually just come back from Trijicon, and they said there's nothing wrong with the erector inside. They said it was due to the mount, which again, I don't see anything wrong with that mount. So we are going to first move the windage. Both caps are off. These are quick set. Windage on this is right going clockwise, facing it. One click is quarter MOA. So we're going to go to the right. So the reticle should go the opposite direction. Are you ready? Did you notice all the dancing that reticle just did? Okay, maybe you didn't. Let's go back to the left and see what happens. Did you notice that? Let's keep going. It's doing some weird, funky stuff. So let's set it right there. I didn't touch the elevation, not one bit. But it dropped significantly from where we were in the beginning. I'm going to grab the TA33 again. I'm going to shake it. I'm going to wiggle it. I'm going to try to pry it off my mount. Oh, look at that. It returned to 0 just fine. Anywho, let's continue going to the left. Oh, it's raising back up. I didn't touch the elevation. I did not touch the elevation. Let's go back to the right. Huh. That gained a little bit of elevation, I would say. Let's continue going. Oh, look at that. It lost some elevation again. Let's go back to the left. Oh, what is that? What is that? It made a circle. It made a circle. Oh, shit. All right. Okay, we're done with the windage for right now. Let's go on the elevation. Elevation, clockwise, is up. So we're going to go up first. Here we go. Okay. Let's continue going up. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm cramping. I'm cramping. All right. Let's continue going up. All right, it looks like it normalized. Let's go back down. So back the way we came. Nice little divot right there. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. That is not where we started out on the windage. This 0 is a perfect 0 for 50 yards for a rimfire. Very close to 100 yards for 5.56. It's close, within an inch or two. Not a drastic amount to the point where, oh my God, maybe you're all the way out on one side of the erector or the other. No. I made sure when I set this up, I took 3 scopes that were all zeroed properly and brought them down here when I finally secured this down and gave the seal of approval. As you can see, there's something clearly wrong. So the owner of the scope said, hey, there's a thing with some ACOGs where they literally bump the 0. So he says, get something and tap it with something and see if that affects the 0. So hold on, I'm gonna grab something. I had something, but I don't know where it went. I'm going to grab something else. Hold on. Perfect. I have a small pair of pliers. I'm going to use the rubberized handle on the RMR mount that's on the back. You ready? Let's see what happens. Oh, that was the magnifier. I'm a righty and I'm trying to do this lefty, so. That's 1 hit. That's 2 hits. That's 3 hits. Something's shifting, but it could just be rotating a little bit. Let's go up and down. Perfect. Something's in there moving. Let's try the front objective. Just a little love tap. That looked like it might have normalized. So let's check the windage again. Let's go to the right, which is clockwise from the face. Ready? I would say that was almost good. Let's go back to the left. I'm moving it left, yet it's not moving. Still going left, it ain't moving. Still, okay, there we go. That was like 12 clicks. That was 3 minutes before it moved. All right, so let's see if I could bring the reticle up to match the top center of the target. Nope. Let's go the other way. Okay, there we go. Let's try to recenter the reticle. Let's go down. Trying to go down. Okay. We're exactly where we want to be. Let's tap this again. On top. Good. Good. Tap the front objective. Well, I'm tapping it, and nothing's happening. So, let's give these turrets one more twist. Let's go to the right. We lose a lot of elevation. That's a far extreme. So 3 mils, which is, X amount of MOA is fine. Let's go back to the left. Ready? Count the clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 or so clicks before it starts to move. And then it just shoots up. It jumps up. And then it goes on this wavy ride. Okay. Well, let's look at the elevation one more time. What the fuck is that? Tell me what that is. What is going on here? It's definitely not the mount. It's definitely not something to do with my setup. It's definitely the internals. There's a problem with the erectors. I don't know what else to say. Other than this fails. And if you're curious, I did send this into Trijicon, and they said it was the mount's fault, and I don't believe them.
If you skip past the tracking portion of this, please go back and watch it. I know it's a little bit longer than usual, but I tracked this thing numerous times. I sent it back to Trijicon to have them checked out, and they said there's nothing wrong with the internals, but there's definitely clearly something wrong with the internals. But for all I know, it's wrong with the internals for every single ACOG out there. They've been in service for decades at this point, so I guess they know what's best. But this is, without a shadow of question of doubt, the worst performance I've ever seen on a tracking test. Nothing has failed this hard, even the cheapest Chinese-made POSs. It's really, really embarrassingly bad. Speaking of embarrassingly bad, it is the view looking through this thing. I know right now I'm just doing a real quick test, just giving an idea of eye relief and fitment and showing what the RMR looks like on top. But the view looking through this thing is comically small. If you were to go on their website, they claim the field of view at 100 yards, ladies and gentlemen, is 19.4 feet. 19.4 feet. You might be saying, that sounds pretty good. I have no reference for that. Well, when I make the comparisons very soon, you will have a perfect side-by-side reference. But just know, the one real 3x prism I'm going to put against this, guess what? It's twice the field of view. Maybe you're saying, well, the eye relief must be really far forward, because that'll also have an impact on your field of view. And you would be correct. If you have a scout-style scope that's 18 inches out in front of you, or a magnified scope on a pistol, then yes, typically the farther away it is, the smaller the field of view, because the longer the eye relief. No, the eye relief on this thing is claimed at 1.9 inches, which is really, really close. I'll give you a hint. The other thing I'm going to compare this to has a much longer eye relief. Yes, that's right. A much longer eye relief and a much larger field of view. And the view looking through it is about twice as large as what we see here, maybe even a touch more. But I'm going to save that. I'm going to digress. I'm going to focus on at least what we have right here before you. It's really small. It's really hard to see. And it's not like the resolution is mind-bendingly good. The resolution, meaning the amount of information that we see inside the image, I'd honestly only say is mediocre at best. It really doesn't fill me full of joy. This does not pass the Marie Kondo test. It's kind of very lackluster. Let me do my standard suite of 2 times crop, or half the image so it looks twice as large. Focusing on our 400-yard brick building, what we can see is rather sharp, but the image still looks so small. It's almost like we're looking through a non-magnified optic here. But again, it's supposedly 3x times. As far as the reticle, if you do not like what the reticle is here, the one nice thing about Trijicon is they offer a ton of different reticles across the board, whatever optic you're focusing on, whether it be a Credo, whether it be an Acupoint, whether it be an ACOG. You're going to have your choice of reticles that are going to line up for you as good as possible. I don't mind the chevron like this. I actually quite like it. It doesn't seem too big. Scale-wise, it seems proper. Let's do another unorthodox approach and crop this digitally 2 times more. So this is 4 times what the normal eye would see when you get behind this thing. And at this point, it looks okay. You know, you can see the bars on the windows. You can see the darker bricks. Colors look pretty good. Contrast, it was a very bright sunny day. Sun was perfectly overhead to have almost no shadows up there. So it makes it look a little bit washed out. But it honestly looks pretty decent. But the view looking through it is just so small. Pulling back to a 2x crop, let's see if there's any sort of distortion to this image. We're going to quickly pan across this 30-yard telephone pole, and yeah, it looks pretty damn flat to me. It also looks really sharp and clear, and that's another real thing that we have to note. The depth of field in this thing is wonderful. Whether you're at 30 yards or 900 yards here, you have a wonderfully sharp and clear looking image. Colors are good, brightness is good, edge-to-edge sharpness is fantastic. It's bright from center to edge. There's no real issues with that, and part of that has to do with the overall eye relief and exit pupil, which is rather on the larger side. The exit pupil is about 8.38 millimeters. I haven't really talked about that much in my reviews, but it's something I'm going to start taking more note of because I've had some issues with some HPVOs lately that have really caused nothing but, problems, and I want to elaborate on it a little bit more to help explain to people what it actually means. The illumination on this thing can get really bright when you have an ambient light source on top. I have a small flashlight into the fiber optic tube on top, and you can see the tritium lights up like a Christmas tree. It's wonderful. I am filming this indoors, so I'm in absolute shade as opposed to how bright and sunny it is outside. So it's not a true representation of what this thing is capable of as far as overall outside brightness. What I like to refer to as image stability is when you can see through the scope even well off center of it and the image still looks exactly as it does when you're perfectly behind it. Happily, the image stability on this thing is wonderful, and because it technically is a second focal plane reticle, you can see it even when it's off into the shadows, even with the minor amount of illumination that it has. The overall eye box on this thing is quite forgiving, again partly because the exit pupil is so large. 8.3 millimeters is very large, and it's just got a giant eye box on it. The eye relief might be short, but you can choke up onto it or you can pull back from it enough to be able to use the thing in really awkward positions, as you can see here, just playing around with the RMR on top. I really don't like RMRs, but you might love them, and that's perfectly fine because whatever works for you is going to work, and that's the beauty of having so many different options. Ideally, though, you want to get just at the perfect length or distance rather behind this thing, about 1.9 inches, 2 inches, to really get the maximum as far as view looking through it and least amount of scope body. But just know you could really dance behind this thing and still manage to look through it. It is a wonderful performance. From a pro to another mute-ish point, the lower light performance on this, to my eye, wasn't all that stellar. This is not a very low light environment, but you can already see that looking without the optic in front to with the optic in front, there is a bit of a difference as far as brightness goes. With my recording setup and how my eye picks up light, maybe I'm different from everybody else, I don't really know. But in lower light environments where I'd normally film in true dusk, twilight times, I felt this thing didn't really perform all that well. And part of that has to do with, again, how small the view is looking through it. It just doesn't seem like it's that bright to my eyes. And it's only a 30mm front objective, but it just wasn't stellar. It's usable, I'm sure, for most people. The tritium is nice, however. You could see even right now it's visible off into the shadows. But other than that, it's just okay. Let's finally get into some comparisons. And the first one's going to be with a very budget-friendly option, which is the SLX 3X. This thing comes in at around $300, about a third the price of the TA33. It is made in China, however, but that's the only real difference. No, who am I kidding? There are significant differences. Just look at the view through both of these. there is a significant difference as far as everything else is concerned. Field of view, I already briefly mentioned earlier. On the TA33, it's 19.4 feet at about 100 yards. On the SLX 3X, 38 feet. That's right, almost twice the field of view as opposed to the TA33. And you might be saying, yeah, but I bet you the eye relief is better on the TA33. The farther out the optic is, the smaller the view looking through it is, typically. Mentioned that already earlier as well. Well, no, because the TA33 is only 1.9 inches, the SLX, 2.7 inches. That's nearly an inch farther forward. I don't know about you, but I don't want an optic that I literally have to be on top of to look through. As far as the weight goes, they're kind of similar. The SLX comes in about 8.5 ounces, whereas the TA33 is almost 12, including a really nice mount and an RMR on top. So honestly, the weight, they're basically just a wash. As far as the exit pupil, the TA33 does have a slightly larger exit pupil at 8 roughly 4 millimeters, we'll round it up to, whereas the SLX is acclaimed around 7.4. What that means is you can get behind the SLX a little bit less than you can with the TA33. You could dance around the TA33. With the SLX, you sort of gotta be a little bit more mindful of having a proper cheek weld, being in a proper position. But if that's the only reason why I would pick the TA33 over the SLX, then that is not enough of a reason for me to want to buy one. Yeah, it's a lot of fun getting behind American-made stuff, but I have to crop the TA33, again, to that 4X crop that we saw earlier, to even come close to what the view is looking through the SLX3. And at that point, it's impossible to get that with the naked eye with the TA33, whereas with the SLX, you get that basically all the time. As far as reticles go, I don't mind the ACSS reticles found in all of the primary arms prisms. I think they're a good, healthy size and setup as far as potential drops that you might be able to use in your own setup, and it just draws my eye more to the center as opposed to what you see here with the Trijicon. Now, yes, you can get different reticles with the Trijicon. We talked about that already, but I also like having battery-powered illumination because when I want the illumination to be a little bit brighter, I can, or a little bit dimmer, or completely off. I have that adjustability. I typically go for the American-made products when I can, but for a third the price, it's kind of hard to ignore the SLX series of prisms. They're honestly just really good for the money. My next comparison is going to be with another primary arms products. This time it's the GLX2X. I filmed with this one a while ago, and my filming style has changed slightly, so it's not going to line up perfectly with the footage here for the TA33. But just a quick rundown. These are still made in China, even though the GLX series are mostly made in the Philippines. Price is about $370, so a little bit more expensive than the SLX, but you get a 42-foot field of view, even though it's only a 2X prism. But then you might say, but if it's less magnification, it should have a much larger field of view. You are absolutely right. But what it does have is even more eye relief. The eye relief on the GLX2X is 3.5 inches, almost another inch farther forward from the SLX, which guess what? Was almost another farther inch forward from the TA33. So you can have the GLX literally almost twice the distance from your eye as opposed to the TA33. That's a lot. That's a lot. What that means is you have better situational awareness because the scope's farther forward, but yet you still have a much larger view looking through it. You also have very similar reticle options to the SLX. You have also very flat, clear, bright image, good illumination. You do have shake awake, which I didn't mention on the SLX, but you also have it on that and this. It's wonderful. It's also about the same weight as the TA33, but the TA33 at that point would have, a couple different features more. Both the SLX and the GLX come with a very basic mount that's not QD. However, they both take micro ACOG mounts, so I could have taken the mount off of this TA33 and put them on both the SLX and the GLX. As far as the exit pupil on the GLX, 12 millimeter. That's almost 50% more than the TA33. The GLX2X is a sweetheart of a prism and probably my favorite of the bunch. In fact, it was also my friend's favorite because when I let him borrow it for a big two-gun match, he never gave it back. So, yeah, I'm going to have to get another one because I really do miss it. If I was running an AR and I really wanted just a touch of magnification to really help me get to that next distance, but still be able to use it fairly up close, because let's face facts, 2X is not that much as opposed to a 1X. It is that little bit different between 2 and 3X where you start really noticing a big difference. It's just it's a sweetheart. It's a sweet spot for me, and it's definitely the one I would take. In fact, it's the prism I would take over almost everything. My friends got at least 1,000 rounds through a couple of 2 good matches, beat the ever-living crap out of it, and it just continues to work. I love it. It's the one I recommend to a lot of people, and it's absolutely what I would take. I just wish that Primary Arms would start making them in the Philippines or Japan at least. Even if the cost went up exponentially, it would still be worth it in my opinion. Speaking about unorthodox, let's get into our final comparison, which is going to be with another Trijicon product. This time it's the 3X Magnifier. What happens if you're in the camp where you're not really sure if you want a red dot or holographic sight with a magnifier or a prism of some sort? Well, if you're in that camp, let me give you some pros and cons of each. With the TA33, you're going to have a very small view looking through it. With the Trijicon 3X Magnifier, you're going to have a much larger view looking through it. How much? Almost double. Field of view is 38-ish feet with the Trijicon 3X Magnifier. You will have a little bit of fisheye and distortion, but very minimal all things considered. As far as the eye relief, you're talking about 2.7 inches versus almost 2. And the weight of the magnifier alone is just under 10 ounces, 9.3. The exit pupil is also much smaller. It's only about 5 millimeter. But when you get behind it, you have a massive view looking through it. Yes, there are other magnifiers in the market which will give you a much larger view looking through it, but I love the Trijicon 3X Magnifier. It's probably my favorite of the bunch, given its size, its weight, and its overall performance. And for the price, price-wise, they're about $400. Now you might be saying, that's a lot of money for just a magnifier, when then I have to buy a red dot or holographic sight to put in front of it. Well, yes, you are correct, but if you get a good quality optic in front of it, like this lead and steel LP1, you can see that the image quality on it is incredibly good. There's no real loss of brightness. There's no real loss of sharpness. Yeah, there's a little bit of color tinting, but get yourself an EOTech and it'll help with that a little bit. But it's another option. What happens if you already have a red dot or a holographic sight and you just want that little bit extra? Why not just get a magnifier? And here's the nice thing about the magnifier. If you don't want to use it right away or at the current point in time, you flip it out of the way. Or you hit the QD lever and you remove it completely. Makes your gun even lighter and that much easier to handle. And what happens if you have something like an EOTech and you're thinking about running passive night vision through it? Now you can. Whereas opposed to something with like the TA33, you can't really do that. It just broadens the horizon a lot more and gives you another potential avenue that you can go down, because it is a nice option if you aren't dead set on getting either a prism or if you think you might not need an etched reticle. Now, this won't apply to everybody, because if you have bad eyes like an astigmatism and red dots or holographic sights don't look good to your eye, then that might not work for you. But neither might the TA33, because there's no adjustable eyepiece. So, buyer beware. Since I got into optics, everyone had been talking about ACOGs and how great they are. There's a lot of service members here that have a lot of experience with them, and I'm sure that they will chime in the comment section below like a bunch of hungry piranha to a dead buffalo that just fell into their river. Eat up, boys. Let me know exactly what your experiences are in the past, in the present, in the future, and what you think of them overall. As for me, I know I probably started with the wrong ACOG. The TA33 is not one that I would gravitate towards again anytime soon. But Delta 34 loves these things. And guess what? That's the whole point. If something works for you, if you love it, if it makes you happy, and it does everything you want out of it, then what does it matter what someone on the internet is saying to you about it? I know what works for me, I know what I prefer, I know what I like, and it might not be the same as for you. Nevertheless, I hope this video has been helpful for some of you, because if you are thinking about TA33, just realize that it's got some inherent flaws. And yes, I know it's mostly by design to be small and lightweight, but yet Primary Arms was capable of making not one, but 3 small and lightweight prisms that perform better than this thing in basically every way, shape, and form. Especially when it comes to tracking. I've never had a problem tracking an SLX or a GLX or any other prism for that matter. What happened with this is unexcusable, and how Trijicon took care of it was also very disappointing. I've worked with Trijicon in the past with getting warranty work done, and they've been great. But with this, I felt used and abused. I felt neglected. I'm not going to lie. And if Trijicon watches this and sends a cease and desist, guess what? I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I gave you a product that I know had a problem. and you guys didn't want to take care of it because it didn't have a factory mount. And that sucks. Because what happens if you spent $1,000 on this and there is a genuine problem and they don't take care of it? What's going to happen then? So take that for what it's worth, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying don't buy one. I'm just saying that if you are thinking about buying one, just realize there are other fish in the sea. And with that, a huge thank you to Delta34 for making this video possible. Without you, I wouldn't ever have probably got my hands on ACOG for the next 25 years plus. But ultimately, I have to thank all of you, my lovely viewers, because without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much for watching. And as always, see you again next time. And a huge thank you to my Patreon providers and my Subscribe subscribers. Without you, this truly wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to support my channel but don't want to join either of those, I completely understand. But you could still help by using my affiliate links in the description below, and or like, share, and subscribe as always. Again, thank you very much.